Welcome everyone, those on Zoom and also those joining us on Facebook and YouTube. So we're going to take a couple of minutes and read a psalm again. And then we're going to take most of our time actually this evening, and we'll take some time to share prayer requests and then pray for them. And then we'll update the weekly prayer list and send it out so everybody can remember to pray for these prayer requests during the week. So let's see. So if you are online or not on Zoom on the call and you want to join the Zoom call, just go to zoom.joinabc.com and you can join us here on Zoom. If you want to put a prayer request in, you can go to justjoinabc.com and that will get you where you can click the contact button and then you can send a prayer request in that way. Or you can just leave a message in comment on either Facebook or YouTube, and Brian will relay them over here to the Zoom call in just a little bit. Okay, so let me get myself moved. There we go. And we'll get into this night's psalm. So tonight we're going to read Psalm 66. So why Psalm 66? And we've read a lot of Psalms, but this one's kind of an interesting one. It actually started with a discussion that my wife and I were having, and in that discussion, we talked about the idea of um, we all sin, we all do things that aren't right, and in one level, we all struggle, kind of like the Apostle Paul, where he says in the book of Romans that he sent to the letter to the church at Rome, you know, I I do things that I don't want to do, and I also don't do things that I do want to do, and I've got this struggle inside of how do I, you know, how do I do the right things and don't do the wrong things, and so we know from him that everybody struggles with sin, and usually we there's certain sins that we struggle with, and usually it's the same sin for a while, where it's like I do this and I know that I shouldn't do it, but I don't want to, but kind of I do want to, and that's part of the struggle of how do we move past some of the sin that we do as we understand it, and how do we move from wanting to do it to not wanting to do it, and that's kind of the struggle that we have. But in that discussion, she brought up the verse, "If I regard sin in my heart, the Lord will not hear me." And so how do we kind of put those things together of, I I sin. I know I sin. There's certain things that I do, um and if I try to convince myself that I'm not going to, I'm kind of deceiving myself. I know that there's things that I'm going to do wrong, and I could probably even tell you right now some of the stuff that I struggle with, that I as much as I would like not to, I know I'm probably going to. And so is that regarding sin in my heart? And does that mean the Lord's not going to hear me if I regard sin in my heart? And so how do we have that kind of balance of, Paul saying, I know the right thing to do and I don't do it. And I know the things that I should be doing and I don't do those things. Or I know what I shouldn't be doing and yet I do it anyway. How do we resolve those competing things of we struggle with sin, knowing that over time we're likely going to get past some of those sins? I mean, if we look at our lives 10 years ago, I hope that we're not struggling with the same things that we were struggling with 10 years ago. Maybe we are. But over time, we move past some sins, and then we think we've got it down, and then God reveals something else to us of like, oh yeah, that's not right either. I need to work on that. So it's, until we get to glory, we're all going to struggle with sin. And yet, how do we know if this verse that was thrown out in the conversation of, if I have sin in my heart, if I regard sin in my heart, God doesn't hear me. And so how do I put those things together? So the first thing we did was we looked up, okay, we can quote that verse, but where is it? Where is it in the Bible? And then we always back up and we say, okay, well, let's look at the context. And does that verse mean what we use it for when we're in a conversation and we pull that verse out and say, okay, hey, if I have sin in my life, does that mean God's not going to listen to me? And is that how that verse is used in its context? So we backed up and we pulled up the context, and that verse happens to be as part of Psalm 66. So I wanted to bring that whole psalm in today to say, okay, let's look at the whole psalm. We know we're going to run into that verse. It's near the end, where it says, if I regard sin in my heart, the Lord won't hear me. But we've all heard that verse and we've heard it used. The question is, as we read through this psalm, is that what it means? Or is there some nuance to it that might help us understand that verse a little bit better and how that verse is used? So that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to read through Psalm 66. I'm not going to give you the answer or anything, but we are going to read through Psalm 66. And so that's the kind of the preface for why this psalm and what we can kind of look at as we kind of read through this psalm tonight. Okay, so let's get started. Psalm 66. Wait a minute, let me back up. For the director of music, a song, a psalm. So it's not indicated who wrote it, at least in the front. So that's what we know about it up front. So let's go ahead and read through it now. Shout for joy to God, all the earth. Sing the glory of his name. Make his praise glorious. Say to God, how awesome are your deeds. So great is your power that your enemies cringe before you. All the earth bow down to you. They sing praise to you. They sing the praise of your name. Come and see what God has done, his awesome deeds for mankind. He turned the sea into dry land. They passed through the waters on foot. Come, let us rejoice in him. He rules forever by his power. His eyes watch the nations. Let not the rebellious rise up against him. Praise our God, all peoples. Let the sound of his praise be heard. He has preserved our lives and kept our feet from slipping. For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver. You brought us into prison and laid burdens on our backs. You let people ride over our heads. We went through the fire and water, but you brought us to a place of abundance. I will come to your temple with burnt offerings and fulfill my vows to you, vows my lips promised and my mouth spoke when I was in trouble. I will sacrifice fat animals to you and an offering of rams. I will offer bulls and goats. Come and hear, all you who fear God. Let me tell you what he has done for me. I cried out to him with my mouth. His praise was on my tongue. If I had cherished sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened, but God has surely listened and has heard my prayer. Praise be to God, who has not rejected my prayer or withheld his love from me. And that is Psalm 66. So next we're going to go into a time of sharing prayer requests and taking some time to pray. So if you're watching live, share your prayer request in a comment. And if you're watching in a past version of this, visit our website at visitebc.org or joinebc.com and click the prayer requests button. And now we'll give Brian a minute to end this live feed on YouTube and the public Facebook page. And I'll leave it up to everybody to read that psalm again and see if you can decide, what did the psalmist mean when he said, if I regard iniquity in my heart, if I regard sin in my heart, God isn't going to hear me. Okay, let me move myself. There we go.